We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Wrestling Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decade of the 1980s, and we've got a great group of alumni joining head coach Dan Wernsberger and one of our current wrestlers, Frankie Guida. Frankie is a senior 174-pounder from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we're happy to have him on board. My name's Todd Newcomb. I want to thank our sponsor, Geisinger, for all that they have done throughout the pandemic for our surrounding communities here in Pennsylvania, and for all that they do on a daily basis for our student athletes here at Bucknell University. As I mentioned, we have the decade of the 80s. I'm going to introduce the guests that we have, and then I'm going to turn it over to Coach and Frankie, and we'll get our questions going. Our first guest is from the class of 1980, Bob Greenlee. Bob was a four-year letter winner and the team captain in 1978 and 1979. He was an East Coast Conference champion in 1979 at 177 pounds and in 1980 at 167 pounds. He was a two-time NCAA qualifier, and Bob won the department's Edward W. Pangburn Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest from the class of 1984 is Tim Pangonis. Tim was a four-year letter winner and team captain in 1982 and 83. He was a two-time East Coast Conference champion at heavyweight, and he was a two-time NCAA qualifier. He was also a three-year letter winner for the Bison football program, and Tim won the Albert E. Humphreys Award at the athletic department's Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest is a four-year letter winner for the Bison and a big supporter of the program, Ted Christiansen, from the class of 1986. Our next guest from the class of 1988 is Kevin Bullis. Kevin was a three-year letter winner and team captain in 1987. He was a two-time East Coast Conference champion at 158 pounds and a two-time NCAA qualifier. Our next guest, we're keeping our fingers crossed that he can figure out the computer and get on board with us. That's Ed Kern, also from the class of 1988. Ed was a four-year letter winner and team captain in 1986 and 87. His 23-4 overall record during the 1987-1988 season ranks sixth on the all-time single-season winning percentage list at 85.2% of his matches. His career winning percentage of 77.7 ranks seventh on Bucknell's all-time list. He was a three-time East Coast Conference champion at 134 pounds, a three-time NCAA qualifier, including becoming a quarterfinalist in 1986. He was a second-team academic All-American, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2005. And our final guest from the class of 1989 is a true Bucknell blue and blue through and through. He's Carl Chambers, class of 89. His wife, Karen, also attended Bucknell. His son and daughter also attended Bucknell as well. And Carl was a three-year letter winner in the wrestling program. So, Coach, we've got a great group, and I'm going to turn it over to you for the questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nuke. Appreciate it. Frankie Guida, thanks for being with us this evening. And thank you guys for taking your time to be on it this evening as well. We've done three of these already, and these are really awesome. And we've had a lot of fun, and we've had a blast, heard some great stories, some crazy stories, some fun stories. So, hopefully this is something that we can do more often. But congratulations to you guys on your careers, what you've done for Bucknell University, not just as an athlete, but beyond. I know we talk to our guys every year about the history and the tradition of Bucknell wrestling that dates all the way back to the 1940s. And it's tremendous, the history that we have in this program. So it's great for our current fan base to be able to see this and view this, as well as our current wrestlers to be able to see you guys and just hear from you guys. I know a lot of times we try to bring certain guys back to talk to the team, but this is a little easier when we get 5 or 6 guys on a call at the same time and see each other through Zoom. So I'll start with you, Carl. Just wanted to, before we get into a lot of sharing our memories and everything, if you can just update us on just your personal life, where you live, your career, family, etc.
Sure. I went to Bucknell on a wrestling and ROTC scholarship. So a lot like Tim, when I graduated, I went into the Army for 5 years. Then I came out and went into the business world. Currently work for Fulton Bank as a middle market commercial relationship manager, cover all of north central Pennsylvania. I live up in Willsboro, but also have a place down in Lewisburg, so I am in the area a bunch. The kids that weren't very happy about that when they were in school, but they got over it, especially since the youngest is living here now. The wrestling program has been great. Being a supporter and coming from that, the guys on the call, I still see several of these guys. Well, it used to be pretty regularly, but the pandemic kind of put a little bit of a monkey wrench in some of our plans. But it's been good to stay in touch. I think that's one of the great things about Bucknell is relationships. Right? You've read about a lot of the accomplishments these guys have had in there. There's some great achievements athletically and academically, but ultimately it's the relationships.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate that. Tim, I'll turn it over to you and pose the same question. Just give us an update as far as where do you live, your career, your family.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Todd, and thanks, Coach, for pulling this together. This is really special, and I encourage you to do more of these. After Bucknell, I joined the Navy. Was a Navy pilot. Was in the Navy for 30 years. Got out as a full captain '06. Retired in 2015, and now I'm doing something that I trained at Bucknell for. I'm a high school math teacher. I student taught at Milton High School during my senior year at Bucknell, and knew at some point I always wanted to get back to teaching math in high school. But I couldn't afford it until I got a Navy retirement after 30 years. I can afford to be a teacher. But I'm currently in Memphis. The Navy moved me around East Coast, West Coast, overseas, et cetera, for 30 years. And the music stopped. My last tour was here in Memphis, and I've been here for 10 years now. As my daughter graduated from high school here. She's up in Marion University in Indianapolis, and my son is a senior in high school here, and he'll graduate this year. So that's kind of the personal background on me.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I appreciate the update. Bob, same question to you. If you can update everyone, fan base and our wrestlers and alumni base, where you're at.
Yeah, I moved back to Milton after I graduated. Coached the junior high team for a couple of years, and then went in and coached the high school team. For 28 years. Had a pretty successful career as a coach. Got out of that. Now I'm on the dark side. I'm an official, but I worked at ACF Industries as a plant engineer for 40 years, and I retired from there. And right now I'm just doing some consulting. I have a grandson that's wrestling on the junior high school team this year.
Great. Thanks for that update. How is it with having a grandson wrestling?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, my son wrestled, and then my grandson wrestled. So yeah, it's different.
Yeah. You know why I asked that? Just because I have 3 boys that wrestle, and I've learned that I'm a bad coach for my own sons.
Yeah, I know. Me too. That's what my daughter tells me. So
it's so hard.
Yeah.
There's not a manual on it. I know that.
No.
Well, thanks, Bob. Ted, same thing with you. If you can just kind of give us an update.
Yeah, I live in the same general area as I did prior to coming to Bucknell, between Harrisburg and York, Pennsylvania. We have 3 kids. The oldest is 30. She's a school teacher, and we have one granddaughter to her who's was here earlier. So that was some of the background noise you heard earlier. I have a son that's 27, lives in the DC area now. And then our youngest daughter is 22, and she's a grad student at Butler in Indianapolis, so real close to Marion there. I have a commercial industrial heating and air conditioning service business located in New Cumberland, and so that's kind of my update.
Great, thanks, Ted. Kevin.
Sure. I've been since Bucknell spent some time in New York City. But pretty much settled into life on Long Island a couple of years after graduation. I've been in the retail sector for most of my career, in some big box retailers, Home Depot, Best Buy, Bed Bath and Beyond. I'm now working for a smaller company that does software. I'm a business analyst working with boutique retailers. Love living on Long Island. You know, my wife of over 20 years, and a daughter who is 15, rising senior. And Bucknell is on our list to look at for future, but among many schools. So who knows? But yeah, so great to see everyone, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Kevin. You said your daughter's a senior.
Yeah.
15.
Yep. She's skipping junior year.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Ed, can you hear us all right?
Ed, I put you on mute. You got to take it off mute.
Sorry, 16. My bad.
See if Ed can figure this out. There we go. You're good.
All right, Ed, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you, Coach?
Good, doing really well. I'm glad you made it on here, dude. It's really good to see you. And everyone's just kind of giving an update just before they start sharing some memories, as far as just give us a personal life update as far as where do you live, your career, family, etc.
Cool. Thanks. Sorry for the guys I missed. I was having technical difficulties over here. Computer science or computer engineering undergrad, computer science masters. I can't figure out my own phone, let alone a computer. Walked away from the industry 20 years ago, never looked back. I developed real estate in the Atlantic City area in New Jersey. 2 daughters, 25 and 29. Both went to Penn State, doing very well. And I live on the beach in Atlantic City and love it.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, I'll go back to you, Ed, with this second question. Just take us back to the recruiting process and your recruiting experience, and to just how you ultimately chose to wrestle at Bucknell. You can share that.
It was pretty much Ellery Crispin, Mark Dawson, and the Fiji pool. Because I did my visit. I did my visit on house party weekend. I had already committed fully to Lehigh. It was on the front page of their paper, my commitment. And after that weekend, I went home and told my parents I'm going to Bucknell. The place is a blast. So that is the truth.
That's great.
Yeah, they were pissed.
Dude, I didn't know. There's a good story. I like that. I know this isn't about me sharing my experiences, but it was similar with me when I went to Michigan State. I went on my recruiting trip and I had such a blast. I was like, I just canceled all my other visits. I said, no, this is where I want to be. I had a good time that weekend. Kevin, if you don't mind sharing with us just your recruiting experience and why you ultimately chose Bucknell.
Sure. Really, there was no recruiting experience. I was a walk-on. I essentially showed up and found out the coach was the intramural coordinator. Went to one of those meetings and asked if I could be on the team. He said yes, and it just went on from there.
So why'd you end up at Bucknell?
Just academics. But it's it's the school I want to go to for academics.
Okay.
So I was a wrestler, but I did better at wrestling in college than I did in high school. So Bucknell was a definite boost to my career from a learning perspective.
Yeah, you had a successful career. Thanks. Ted.
I had actually had committed to Princeton, and even after I committed, Coach Ferraro kept calling me, and so yeah, so it was like in October, and after their after each match, he would be calling me up and saying, "Oh, good job," and that's what he was, reading and following. And I didn't really hear much from the Princeton coach, so I hadn't even visited Bucknell until like the end of January, and went in, visited the campus, and went to a practice, and then after that changed, went to Bucknell instead.
Great. Bob, should we share your experience?
Yeah, actually, Coach came up to the wrestling room in Milton. He was kind of recruiting Charlie Howard, who was a 3-time NCAA place winner, wrestled at Clarion and Iowa State. He was recruiting him, and And he came up to the room and was working out with us. And, you know, I got talking to him. He said, hey, you want to wrestle in college? And I said, yeah, I'd like to. And you know, he said, well, there's a spot for you at Bucknell. So I decided to go. I wanted to take engineering, and I knew it was a good engineering school. So that's really all I looked at for that.
That's awesome. What weight did you wrestle your senior year in high school?
My senior year in high school, I wrestled 167. And the reason I wrestled 155 all year. But Charlie actually dropped down and beat me out, and I didn't want to cut weight, so I went up to 167.
I got you. Thank you. Tim, will you share your experience?
Yeah. Coach Gene Depew came to Carlisle High School to recruit me for football. And went up and visited Sigma Chi campy there and spent the weekend and, you know, really enjoyed my time there and got recruited for football. So after summer ball, my freshman year, first week in September, I walked down the hill, knocked on Coach Ferraro's office and said, hey, I wrestled in high school. I'd like to wrestle here too. And he said, sure. And why did I pick Bucknell? Because I wanted to do football and wrestling at the Division I level. I couldn't really find the right fit to have the opportunity to do football D1 and wrestling at D1. So that's why I chose Bucknell.
Wow, that's a hard combination, just trying to do two sports like that. So you approached Coach Ferraro when you were
Absolutely.
here.
I mean, I don't know if he knew anything about me or not, but Coach Depew and Coach Hale were the line coaches there on football, and wrestled with Bobby Greenlee in the room a lot. And then Charlie Heller came to be the coach for a while, so I got to work out with Charlie my last 2 years, and that really helped a lot too.
Awesome. All right, Carl.
I went to Eddie Kern's School of Computers. I never heard of Bucknell. My high school team was looking for a summer camp, and we went to our coach at high school picked Bucknell. So we went to the Bison Wrestling Camp, and Coach Ferraro wrestled with me a bunch of times, and you know, made me want to come to Bucknell. That was the other schools I were looking at. One was West Point, and I did my tour there. And it was early in the season, early in the year rather. The cadets were saluting ketchup bottles and squaring corners, and you know, wearing all gray uniforms. And when I came to Bucknell, there were a bunch of girls in miniskirts.
That's what did it, huh?
That was pretty much what I did. I was on an ROTC scholarship anyway.
Yeah. Good, thanks. Thanks, guys. Hey, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Frankie Guida, and I think he's got a question. It'll be the same question for each of you guys. So go ahead, Frankie. You can pick first who you want to ask it to.
Yeah, so I'll start with Ed. So what was your favorite experience at Bucknell University?
Favorite wrestling experience was freshman year. We had my freshman year, you know, preseason, you know, first tournament of the year. We went to a 2-day tournament up in Bloomsburg, and so I was a freshman. I was still trying to make the team. And on our way home from that, we had 2 team vans, and Bobby Bills, who we all looked up to. He was an ROTC guy. All the young guys looked up to him. And on our way home, he started singing Fiji / you know, military songs, and we're all singing. And this is my first experience traveling with the team. We ended up about 20 feet into a cornfield when he missed a turn and jumped the van into the cornfield. And I was at the time, and I think everybody else was scared shit of Bob Ferraro. And we wrecked the van. The hubcaps were gone. Everything's gone. There were things in the car that shouldn't have been in the car that I won't get into. So we took that thing back, and we still had to wrestle the next morning. Some of us were in the semis, and that was fun because we cleaned that thing up. And freaking Ferrera found a cap under one of the seats and didn't tell any of us until Monday when he kicked our ass. But that was a good entree into Bucknell wrestling for me.
Hey,
Yeah,
Frank.
that's exciting.
Frank, is that the? Will you ask the question about the advice? Isn't it you're asking for advice? What advice would you give me?
Oh, sure. I didn't.
That's the one. I think
I
that's.
didn't have a script, so
you're
I was just
taking-
going off a random one.
Yeah, you're taking mine, and your script says Frankie Guida.
Where is the script? I don't
Do you have
recall.
a question?
Okay, what was it?
Warren's ask it for him. He doesn't have the script.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Yeah.
Here's the question that Frankie's supposed to ask you. It says, "What advice would you give him, give me, which is Frankie Guida, or any other wrestler that's in the program today, about the college wrestling experience at Bucknell?"
Sure.
What advice would you give our guys?
I would just give the advice of it's a limited time, right? Wrestling doesn't go past college for most people, right? So take advantage of what you have. Push yourself to the fullest that you can, but don't leave anything on the table because you don't want to look back and have regrets on what you didn't do.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Same question for you then, Carl.
I have to echo exactly what Kevin said. When you're in it, and especially I remember coming back in January, even before New Year's, and running 3 miles on the indoor track, 24 laps, and thinking, God, this is never going to end. And there's a funny story about that. One guy actually just ran off the side, sat down, and took his shoes off. And that was it. He was done. So, and at the time, you're thinking, this is horrible. This is never going to end. And then you look back and go, geez, that was quick. Kevin hit the nail on the head. It's limited. 4 years seems like a long time, but it goes quick. And the other things I hit on this in the intro is a relationship. I haven't seen Eddie Curran in 30 years, and yet we can still bust on each other. And trust me, if he was close enough, he'd punch me.
No way.
All right, so I think Kevin is next. What advice would you give to me or one of our guys about wrestling?
Same question again?
I think we asked Kevin.
All right.
Yeah.
We asked Kevin already.
We asked Kevin.
Okay. I think have we asked Ted yet?
We have not.
Okay. Ted, could you please go on this one?
At first, Ed, I thought what happened in the 80s stayed in the 80s.
You were in that band, weren't you?
I have no recollection of it.
I know I was. I think there was an injury in that band too.
Yes. And he was in the semis.
Yeah, the thing I would say is just savor all your time there. I mean, the practices and the matches and just all the hanging out time you get. These will develop bonds that'll last you a lifetime. So yeah, I've been to Carl's Casa Chambers in Lewisburg. I've been to Kevin's house, stuff like that. When you're out in different areas, you look people up. Those will be great, just great lifetimes. You can go back and keep telling these same stories over and over again from different things that happened there. And I think it also then just being a Division I college wrestler, I think prepares you for anything else you're going to come across. I mean, now certainly Tim and Carl have been in the military, so that's something different than what we experienced. But I saw Dan Gable speak a couple times, and one was right after 9/11, and he said, America needs more wrestlers, I think, just because of that mindset. And then he also said that after wrestling, everything else in life is easy. So I think that's certainly been my experience. What wrestling has given to me has helped me through, everything else in life, to this point.
Thank you very much, Ted. So next, Bob, would you like to go on this one?
Yeah, sure. I was a late bloomer, so I wasn't a real good high school wrestler, and I actually, really started to wrestle well my junior year in college and senior year. And I actually came down and practiced. I practiced with Timmy and some of the other guys for about 3 years after I graduated, and just enjoyed that, and just the friends that I've met and the memories that I have, just savor them, and just work as hard as what you can, and just make the most of it. It's helped me immensely in everything I've done in my life. And I've always wanted to give back. That's why I got back involved in coaching. And, the same thing I would recommend that, if you feel that you've gained something out of it, give something back to the sport of wrestling. The sport of wrestling will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Bob. So I think the next one would be Tim. Tim, I believe. So
Yeah.
Tim, what advice would you give me about wrestling?
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. I would offer this to you, but I'd more offer this to the freshman, Frankie, okay, about college wrestling allows you to reinvent yourself from your high school self. So kind of Bobby said, it's a whole new chapter. So don't take any of the accolades or the defeats from high school along with you. Come to college, set your own personal goals, and work your tail off to achieve them. Because your ability to achieve those goals through wrestling will really pay off throughout life. There's been many a times that I've been in very strong adverse conditions, and I would reflect back on the times were tough in wrestling practice, a wrestling meet, a wrestling season, and know that, hey, I got through that crap. I know I can get through some of life's adversity. So I would say you can reinvent yourself, set personal goals, and the goals got to be within you. Okay, you and coach got to agree on a goal, but we're all not going to be national champions, so we get that. But there's plenty of personal goals that you can achieve to come out a successful wrestler and a successful man.
Yeah, it's great. Frankie, thanks for asking that question, and that's really good. That's good stuff. It's well said. Just through a lot of these, it's similar responses as far as relationships, right, and just giving back to the sport. That's done a lot for each one of us. So I think that's the name of the game, and that's what it's all about. I appreciate you guys. Question I got, just Carl, I'll go with you on this one. Just your most memorable experience, if you can share. I'm sure there's a handful, but if you want to share more than one, you can. But just one of your most memorable experiences within the Bucknell wrestling program. All right.
Right. It's more of a funny one than memorable. I just always remember those New Year's Day practices. We'd have New Year's Eve in school, and then coach would have morning practice the next day. And it was probably memorable for all the wrong reasons, but it was when these guys talk about being together. You're still grinding out. We usually had some NC State come up and work with us for the week. And to be honest, working with some other guys, those were actually really cool because we got to wrestle with people we didn't wrestle with all the time. So I always found that week, it was tough to come back to school so fast. I always found that to be a great week. We were just with the team for the week. There was no one else on campus. NC State was there, so some new guys, learning some new things. It was a really good combination of having a great time and getting a lot of good work in.
Tim,
your most memorable experience as Bucknell wrestler or in the Bucknell wrestling program?
This is an easy one because I can smell the gym, I can hear the crowd, I can see the mat, I can see my opponent to this day. Sophomore year, the East Coast Conference tournament. I'm the 4th seed in the semifinals going up against the 1st seed. The top seed, he had beat me during the season. He was undefeated in the conference during the season. And Friday night of the semifinals, I beat him 5-2. So I upset the 1st seed in the semis. Then I go into the finals. And my whole mindset at that point, my chant to myself is, I want to go to Iowa. Because the tournament was in Ames, Iowa at Iowa State. So I'm just like, a small town PA boy, I want to go to Iowa. And I still get emotional at this day. So I go into the finals. David Lehman from Westchester, who I beat earlier in the season. He takes me down, cradles me, puts me on my back. I'm down 5-0 at the end of the first period. I'm like, oh shit, I think I can beat this kid, you know? All right, upset the top seed. Now I'm in the finals and I'm down 5-0. I'm on top, second period. I stack him on and roll him and put him on his back and pin his ass. And that was just that special moment for me, and I still remember it.
So what year was that Nationals? They were in Ames?
Ames, Iowa. Yep. My little 18-pounder went with me. Oh, shoot. What was the little 18-pounder's name?
What year was that?
82.
82?
Yeah, my sophomore year. Coach put me in instead of Pazzarotti, and the funny thing is, he comes after me afterwards, says, hey, you should have won the OW award, but they didn't want to give it to a heavyweight, and all the other coaches hated Ferraro, and they didn't want to give him the OW award. So for whatever that was worth. So that was my most memorable experience. I mean, I made it to Nationals that year, and I won my first match. And again, I had a losing season my sophomore year. Won the championship, and then won my first match, and then lost the next two. But because the Bannock brothers were in the Bannocks were in the heavyweight at that time, so there was no. But I won a match in the national tournament. So it was that was the highlight my sophomore year. I'll stop crying here.
No, that's good stuff, man.
That was Mike Rhodes, Tim. Mike Rhodes who went with you.
Thanks, Mike Rhodes. Yes.
Okay, Bob, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, in 1979, I won the conference championship and pinned the returning champion in the finals. And I guess at that time they must have liked Ferrero a little bit, because they did give me the OW that year. But really, the most memorable was my senior year. And my brother also won the conference championship. And me and him and the guy that Timmy had mentioned before, Richard Pazzarotti, we all went to Ames. And Bucknell at that time would not take an assistant coach. So my dad went out to the Nationals, and my dad had never coached on any level. And Ferraro asked whether he would want to come down and sit in the corner for me and my brother. So that was really a neat story. So my dad then went on to help me coach junior high school, but his first coaching experience was in Corvallis out at Oregon State.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Ted, most memorable experience?
Yeah, I'd like to probably actually share two. Ken, one was sophomore year. We were wrestling Drexel, and I was winning like 18-2. This before Tech fall time, and went out of bounds with 15 seconds left. And Coach Ferraro, in his nasally voice, said, "Ted, I need you to pin him." So I ended up pinning him with 1 second left in the match, and we ended up winning the entire match by 1 point. So that extra team point.
That's cool. That is cool.
And then the other story is my senior year, we were wrestling in the Penn State tournament, and I was wrestling Greg Alinsky, who was the #1 ranked kid in the nation at that point. He'd already come in 4th, 3rd, and 2nd in nationals, and I was beating him in the 3rd period. Coach Ferraro wasn't in my corner. He was on another mat somewhere. So Rob Williams, my roommate, was telling me, "Oh, come on, you can beat him." And then he finally, with about a little over a minute left, went out of bounds, and he faked an injury. And after that, I think his coach told him what a bum he was wrestling and better get it together, and ended up losing. But that was my shot at individual glory.
That's great. That's great. Kevin.
Yeah, I think probably one of my most memorable experiences was junior year. Ed was on the team, Carl, when we went to the ECC tournament, and we were doing so well as a team that we went into the finals pretty much winning the tournament. And so it was a great feeling going to the finals with pretty much everyone on the Bucknell team on the one side of the mat being introduced as the side. So, I mean, that was a great team experience for me. You know, obviously going to nationals was great individually, but, you know, it was funny too in that year. We hated our uniforms. So we just showed up for matches in those stupid blue shorts from practice and the gray shirt with the BU stamped on it in ink. And that was our uniform. And we won the ECCs looking like a ragtag bunch of bums.
Coach Ferraro needs to step it up. Use some of that kid money.
I think he'd rather have the win than the look.
Yeah.
We did look like ragamuffins because no two guys wore the same thing.
Eddie, what's your most memorable?
Except for the van. How about if I answered this one, but I didn't answer Frankie's, so I'll answer that. Basically, the motto I lived on Frank was, I always thought if you trained your ass off and worked as much as you possibly can during training, and you also studied your ass off and concentrated completely on studying during study, you would enable yourself the time to take advantage of all the other things that Bucknell had and enjoy the shit out of that time that was left over the best you can, so that when you look back, you could be happy with all three. You could be happy with how you studied. You could be happy with how hard you worked to wrestle. And equally important, you could be happy with your all-around experience at Bucknell. And my personality, that worked for me. It made me feel like I deserved the time to have a good time when I was having a good time. Doesn't work for everybody, I'm sure.
No, what do you think of that, Frankie?
I like that plan a lot. I pretty much follow it to a T already.
Nice.
I work out as hard as I possibly can when I'm working out, and I'm studying pretty much as much as I can every other moment. And then when I get free time, it's awesome.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the whole balance, balance in that academic life, athletic life, and the social life. And it's a challenge to be a Division I athlete, or in particular Division I wrestler, and do it. It really is. Especially when there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of distractions around you. So sometimes you're required to take the road less traveled than the road that everyone else usually travels.
It's the balance that keeps them at bay a little bit. If you can focus, it does keep some of the distractions at bay.
Yes, 100%. I have one more question for you guys, and I'll turn it over to Frankie for his final question. Who was a teammate, and Eddie, I'll start with you. Who was a teammate you admired the most throughout your career?
I had a lot of great teammates. Kevin, obviously, being one. Mike Bomberger had a lot of success. Mark Dawson, the guys I learned from. But honestly, if it's admire, it was the guys like Mario Harple and David Goldberg, and there's many, many others that did everything that we had to do. They had to train the same level. They had to give up the same things. And they were very important, dynamic to the team. They had as much to do with the success of the team and the makeup of the team. But quite frankly, they never got the upside of being in the spotlight like some of us. And I admired them because, some of them never even got to wrestle a varsity match and stuck with it for 4 years. I admired them because I know that I could not have done that. I could not have went through 4 years without the upside of the attention and once in a while the rewards for all the hard work. So I really did admire those guys that made it through 4 years and just didn't get some of what we got out of it. But they got much more because they did that.
Yeah, it's well said. Tim, who was a teammate that you admired the most throughout your career?
You're on mute.
I would say Doug Mays was one. John Stoner and Wally Zimmerman. Wally was a kid that he worked his butt off in his senior year. He finally got a chance to go to the national tournament. I was really happy for him. Doug Mays, John Stoner, kind of quiet leaders in the room, but worked their tail off each time. never got an opportunity to go to nationals, but was a blue collar worker. Came to practice every day, worked hard, with great examples throughout. So those would be a few of mine.
That's great. Kevin, shoot that to you.
Sure. I think from my experience, the biggest impact some teammates had on me when I was a freshman. As I said, I probably got better in college than I was in high school. And guys like Ted and Dan Hartman and Rob Williams kind of took me under their wing as a freshman and showed me the ropes. I mean, literally, they beat the hell out of me, but also taught me a lot. And I think that really the crucible of that first year, having the guidance from them, both being practice partners and mentors, was important.
That's great. That culture is critical. Those old guys grabbing the young guys. I know we talk about it a lot. Just those old guys grabbing those young guys and showing them the ropes early. Awesome to hear that. Ted.
Yeah, I'd have to say it was Ferg. Retired Marine Colonel Ian Ferguson was certainly not the most talented guy in the room, but he probably had the most mental toughness of anybody out there. And I think we'd come into a team that had a whole lot of turnover prior to that. So my senior year, Wally that Tim mentioned was the only senior we had in the team. Tim's senior year, Tim was the only senior. Then by Ferg's year, there were 3 seniors, and we had 4 our year. So it kind of felt like that really helped build the program there too, than the glory days the team had after that time.
Yeah. Great. Bob.
Yeah, the couple guys that I really learned a lot from. One would be Tommy Scott, and Tommy was undefeated in dual meets in his career. And Tommy was a lightweight, so I really didn't wrestle with him. But just his work ethic and the way he approached matches and how he went after people always impressed me. So it took me a while to learn that myself, and it took me a while to learn that you really started in the practice room, and if you could keep people from scoring points on you in the practice room, if you went in every day and didn't want anybody to score on you, you would get better. And one of the guys, and I had heard he has passed, and maybe some of the other guys know, was Mark Baker. Mark was a workout partner for me. He was a year younger than me, and Mark was another guy that had a big influence on me too.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Tommy Scott was on last night, and his bio is ridiculous. Just reading his accomplishments, it's ridiculous. How that guy never placed at nationals is beyond me, but for him to go undefeated in dual meets and all his other accomplishments it's amazing. He had some great things to say as well. Carl, I'll leave that. You're the last guy on it.
I'm the youngest on the group besides Frankie, so that makes sense. But actually, that worked out. I had a distinct advantage, or I had an interesting opportunity. I got to learn, as Kevin pointed out, I got to learn from Ted and Dan Hartman, Kevin and Ed, because I was a 50-pounder, so I was the smallest guy on the heavyweight mat. So I'd come down and wrestle with Ed. Then I have to go wrestle with Ellery. So those are always interesting times. And they all, wrestle with Ed and Kevin and Mike and Ted. Those guys really taught me a lot. But I have to echo what Eddie Kern said. The guys I look to that, even to this day, they just kept coming back every day. Like Dave Goldberg. I mean, Dave did not even wrestle varsity. He never won a JV match. I had a chance to wrestle with Brian Burns and Tommy Marchetti, right? They were a couple of years younger. So Marchetti was an All-American when I was there. I wrestled with him every day in practice. Burns, there was a story I didn't tell. Burns came in a lot like Kevin, a walk-on, but he was small. He was a 50-pounder freshman year, 58. And I beat the snot out of him as a freshman. I'll never forget it. He came back his sophomore year. First day in the room, and I went to shoot on him. He sprawled, and his legs disappeared. He grew over the summer. He was a 90-pounder in one summer. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. But the guys who didn't get the upside, as Ed said, and they come back and they train. I mean, Mario, you would never know he never wrestled a varsity match. he practiced as hard as anybody. Those guys, they always have my respect. And, these guys all talk about wrestling when you're down, down later in life. Even when I feel a little down, I think about those guys and think, hey, if they can go through Coach Ferraro for 4 years, this is just a walk in the park for a couple of days, right? Like, that's nothing. So those are guys, and just, everybody had a little bit different, personal experience. For me, it was just being on the team.
Yeah.
Just being around the team, being with these guys. I always tell my kids, nowadays you don't see it, but we were such a tight team. Not only were we the same team, we also all lived together, ate together. You can always tell the wrestlers because we were all walking around cold, cut and weight. We had hats on, and we all traveled in a pack. And it was actually kind of funny looking back on it. My wife will still say, Frankie, you might have heard in the intro. My wife and her older sister both went to Bucknell. Her sister was in Kevin and Ed's class, student camp. And they'll say, so-and-so. I'm like, did he wrestle? Like, no, I didn't know him. These are your teammates and your guys. So that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, some things never change. I know our group of guys are very, very close. They do everything together. They hang out, and close group. I think it's the nature of the sport. I think we got one more question, and it's going to come from Frank the Tank.
Yeah, so last question for you guys. What advice would you give me or my teammates about networking and finding a job after Bucknell? We'll start with Carl.
I think I'm a little bit – some of the guys have older kids. My daughter is in her third year of law school. My son, who kicked for the football team, he's in his second year of his master's program at Bucknell's mechanical engineer. And I'll tell you, the thing I found for people your age is they don't like to talk, they don't like the networking thing. They want to say, hey, Kevin, could you introduce me to somebody? Or Carl, can you introduce me to somebody? But those networks, so just to give you an example, I reached out to a friend of ours, Rick Donaldson, Monty now, and I said, hey, you're a lawyer. Just look at my daughter's resume. See what you think. She wants to do something he doesn't do. Because I just talked to her for 20 minutes, let her know what she should do about her resume. That was it. He's like, sure. He texted me back. She's awesome. I sent her resume out to 2 other guys in her field, and I'm going to make sure they talk to her. So, that's why you're at school like Bucknell. That's why you network, especially in today's job market. It's kind of like college applications, right? The internet. Everybody can apply to every school. Becky was actually, before she talked to Monty, on the Department of Justice website for an antitrust position. It was going to be her and 14,000 other lawyers looking for a job. So those warm handoffs, those warm referrals. I can't say enough about what that networking does. And it's really hard for your age group because you're so used to texting. And, you don't want to actually go up and talk to somebody. I have this fight with both my kids. They're about your age. They said Jack's 24 and Becky's 26. Hey, say hello. Well, that's weird. I don't know them. Well, how are you going to get to know them if you don't say hello?
Exactly.
So that that's for networking, and I would go through and watch all these and take everybody's name down for all the different years, and I'd reach out to them. Hey, this is what I'm interested in. Do you do this, or do you know someone who does this, or it's kind of like dating. You don't get a date if you don't ask.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. So Ted, do you want to do this one next?
Yeah, something I think kind of similar. The better personal contact you can have with people, the better off it is. I mean, certainly, if there's probably some database where you can look out to as you're looking for a job and see the geographic area you're looking for, or a major or something like that, you might be able to reach out to. But I think it's much more powerful if you've met them at one of the alumni functions, or certainly the golf outing would be a time to see, the people, the returning wrestlers from there, and find out, whatever you can about them. And I know it makes a good impression on us when someone comes up and talks to us and, makes us feel like we can relive some of that glory by telling, trading some of these stories and stuff like that. And we want to hear about the current program. And then we want to know the wrestlers as best we can, so that if we meet you at the golf outing, we're going to be following how you do the whole rest of your career. And it's a lot easier for you then to reach out and say, hey, I met you at golf and I saw you at this match and stuff like that. And now I'm looking for a job, in this field, of anything. And even though in a lot of cases we might not be able to help you directly, there's a better chance we might be able to put you in touch with somebody else that is more of what you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ted. Kevin, do you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I think, as far as the networking goes, it starts with, your compatriots. So get to know the people you're going to school with, right? And don't lose touch with them after school is over, all right? So it's work. Work is work. You're going to have a job 40 hours a week or more, all right? But, the other part is continuing those relationships, and that's part of, your career as well. As far as right now, when you chat with folks, ask them what they do. It's not always about asking for a job. It's learning about what they do, right? So people love to talk about themselves, and you can just simply say, hey, what do you do? I want to learn a little bit more about, what you do for a living. And, that'll just naturally morph into a good conversation for you to see if it's something you'd like to do, or maybe, it's not for you, but, now you've got a good contact. So the other thing that, that I've seen over the years, and I still get emails, Bucknell has a great resource. I get emails pretty much every week for Bucknell networking events, Bucknell Career Center, job fairs, stuff like that. And you should stay current with that. Even if you don't need it, you're working, just know that it's a resource for you now, but also after you graduate, because they are very interested in continuing helping you even after you graduate.
Thank you. So next is Bob.
Yeah, Frankie, don't be afraid to let people know that you're a wrestler. I mean, if it helps. I mean, there's not a tougher sport around, and if they know that you're going through something like that, it's a big help. And I would look up the area maybe that you wanted to go if you had an idea about it. Try to find out someone that lives in that area, and maybe get in contact with them. They might not want to do the same job that you wanted to do, but they might not know some firms or something that would be interested in that. But don't be afraid to play the wrestling card. I mean, anybody that knows anything about sports knows that if they hired a wrestler, they hired somebody that worked hard.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bob. So Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to jump off Bobby's. The fact that you're a wrestler is a big deal, and don't ever undercut that. That's got to be high on your resume somewhere, and not so much conference championships or your win-loss record. The fact that you were a wrestler, most important thing. Mm-hmm. Also, having lived kind of all over the country here in the Navy, I've been really a little bit surprised the reputation of Bucknell from coast to coast. It's not just kind of a Northeast kind of thing. I'm still waiting for Todd to bring some alumni mixers down to Memphis or something in the Mid-South here. But Bucknell does have a reputation nationwide. Being in the Navy, along with a lot of Naval Academy guys, oftentimes you'll see Bucknell was on their list as they were looking at schools as well. Some of the guys, I met other wrestlers in the Navy as well. A common experience. And another thing, don't be afraid to nurture relationships, meaning, check in with someone checked in with 2 or 3 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, or 6 or 7 years ago. Facebook, your generation may be getting off Facebook and using other stuff, but, nurture relationships, because you never know when you're going to need something. I heard Atlantic City here. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about moving to Brigantine. And I'm like, wow, there's my guy.
down.
I grew up going to summer vacations in Brigantine, New Jersey, at the Brigantine Castle. If you remember the day of the Brigantine Castle, but like just stuff like this really helps. So that's my pitch.
Yeah, thank you. Last but not least, Ed.
Tim, make sure you bring it down. You get in touch with me when you come down. I know a little bit about this market down here with fun things and business things. So definitely look me up if you're coming down this way. And to answer your question, I've never been the greatest networker in the true sense of networking. To me, it's commonality. And you happen to have two of the coolest commonalities that you could have, wrestling and Bucknell, because they're both very strong and tight fraternities. I'm sure every sport believes that their, cohorts are very tight, but it's just a little different with wrestling. You can pick them out on the beach. You can pick them out in a bar. You can pick them out in a touch football game. How many times you go, hey, did you ever wrestle? Because you just know already that guy wrestles. And when you're wrong, it's usually a rugby player, a hockey player, or a lacrosse player, or a boxer, because they're all kind of similar tight fraternities of tough-ass people. And it doesn't have to be your colleagues that wrestling. I coached high school wrestling. If any one of my kids ever had a sister or a father that needed something, or a nephew, the fact that ties there between me, the commonality between me and that wrestler, just think of how far those strings were at, reach. So I've always relied on that type of thing. Friends of friends of friends. I'm not one to go out to a bar and tell everybody what I do and ask everybody what I do, but there's enough in the two things, enough commonality and really dedication and appreciation for just the two things that I know about that you're involved in. You're probably involved in much more. So that's my take on networking.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the time tonight and just what you guys bring to the table and your success, not just on the mat and at Bucknell, but afterwards. And you guys are great examples for our guys to follow. I know that. It's a big deal to have you guys on here and for our guys to be able to see this. So thanks.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, Coach, I'll wrap it up. And first I want to turn my attention to Frankie and thank you for taking the time to be on the call tonight. Wish you the best of luck with the rest of the semester. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we're keeping fingers crossed that next semester you're competing. You guys are out there on the mat fighting each and every night, and we'll be pulling for you when that does happen. And to the alums, just as Coach mentioned, thank you for taking the time to do this. It's so important for you all to share your stories, and I hope Frankie's going to take back to his team a lot of what he heard tonight, and what you guys all did while you were here at Bucknell, and how you represented the school then, and how you continue to represent it now in your everyday life, and what you do for our current student athletes as well. The wrestling program, much like most of our athletics programs, would not be where they are without the alumni support, and we really appreciate all that you guys do.